3 days later, Sean submitted a transfer request to the faculty office, a decisive move to switch to the humanities track. The form required parental signatures. When his parents saw it, their surprise was palpable. "Shouldn't our son be studying sciences? It'll be hard to find a job later with a humanities degree, son." He replied softly but clearly, "I've tried my best, but if I stay in the science track, I'm afraid I won't even get into an average university." Eventually, both signatures appeared on the form, and time proved it was the right decision. In the first monthly exam of 12th grade, Sean made it into the top class of the Humanities Division, a turning point no one had anticipated. I stopped paying attention to him. Back then, all my energy was poured into my studies. I yearned to conquer the most challenging math problems. I wanted my essays to earn the highest scores in class. I strived for absolute perfection in biology, refusing to lose a single point. I crammed every tiny chemical reaction into my head. I relentlessly pursued every possible point in physics, which was always my strongest subject. My ranking steadily climbed, from outside the top 100 in the entire cohort to the top 90, then 80, finally settling around 50th place. Everyone was fighting tooth and nail for a better position. For me, just maintaining my current spot without dropping was a battle in itself. Time crawled by like melting candy under the sun. Exams piled upon exams, endless studying, forgetting and relearning, making mistakes and correcting them without end. Then one day, I looked up and realized with a start that the university entrance exam was fast approaching. That year, the exam was held earlier than usual, moving from July to June, but the summer sun was still intensely scorching, enough to drive one mad. The sun poured fire onto the schoolyard, scorching the very ground. In the vast examination hall, besides the clattering of ceiling fans, the only sound was the rustling of pens diligently racing against time. I remember that New Year's Eve my sister Clara came home to visit. We lay close together, talking late into the night. She told me that just 10 kilometers from her factory, there was a prestigious university. Its gates were always open, allowing outsiders to visit. Once, her colleagues said they'd go take a look, but each time they just passed by and did nothing. No one had the courage to step inside. Her voice softened, gentle as the night breeze. Perhaps they felt unworthy, or maybe they were afraid. "Dana, when you get into university, I can walk in there with you," head held high. I knew I probably couldn't take her to Tsinghua or Peking University in this lifetime, but I wanted to lead her to a really good school, show her around the library, have a meal in the canteen, and sit for a while in a quiet lecture hall. On the day the exam results were released, the sky poured rain. The villagers whispered, "Rain is a bad omen, it's yin, and Dana is a girl. This exam might not go well for her." Girls often lose their nerve at crucial moments. A girl from the neighboring village was brilliant last year, always in the top few dozens, but on exam day, she faltered and only got into a third-tier university. My mother woke up at dawn, cleaning the house several times over. She urged Sean to check his scores first, but he demurred. "Let Clara check hers first, I'm too nervous." I was the first to pick up the phone and call the lookup system. A robotic voice on the other end clearly articulated the numbers. 603. That year, the university admission cutoff for my type of program was 567. I surpassed that by more than 30 points, higher than all my previous mock exams. With this score, I could confidently apply to a top-tier university, even aiming for a highly competitive major at a prestigious institution. Before I could ask to hear it again, my mother hung up. She chirped, "I heard it, 603, now it's Sean's turn." Sean scored 568 points, exactly 10 points below the provincial cutoff for top-tier humanities programs that year. While not enough to get into the absolute best universities, the result still opened the door to a reputable second-tier university, which was quite good. For the first time in many years, our village had 2 siblings simultaneously receiving university admission letters. It was as if a fairy tale had descended upon our peaceful little hamlet. My father was like a great drum inflated by the wind, swelling with pride, almost bursting with joy. Under the scorching early summer sun, he didn't bother to rest at noon. He just wore his tattered straw hat, roaming around the village, never forgetting to brag to anyone he met. Passing the exam is success. Not passing means nothing. Both my children are going to university. My daughter Clara also passed the #1 high school exam back then. It seems this quick wit runs in my family from me. My mother's eyes were red all day, as if she had just shed a heavy burden of many years. This family finally has 2 children going to university. Let's see who dares to look down on us now. Back then, those women in the village constantly gossiped. What's the point of a girl studying high school? It's just a waste of money. Now they'll be seething with envy. That evening, my mother went to the riverside to catch some breeze. Several village women stopped by to greet her and then remarked, if only Dana's score had been a little higher, that would have been wonderful. How great if they could swap scores. A girl going to a village school is good enough, but if a son can get into a good university, it'll be easier for him to build a career later. My mother nodded, clicking her tongue. Honestly, it's truly a pity. But perhaps she caught sight of my shadow faintly visible at the edge of the field. She quickly added, but Dana achieved all this through her own hard work. It's fate. Everyone chimed in agreement. The Chu family must have great blessings, their ancestors must be watching over them. It's no wonder green smoke is rising from their ancestral graves. I no longer cared for their whispers and hurried home to wait for Clara's call. She was only free in the evenings when the factory ceased operations, and the assembly line's hum fell silent, allowing for a brief conversation. When she heard about Sean's and my scores, she burst out laughing, then suddenly cried like a child. Dana, you finally did it. I asked you to go to school for me, to pass that exam for me, and you really did what I never could. You're so brilliant, so brilliant. I'm so happy I can't even speak. We talked for a long time, our voices choked with emotion, and then we both cried. She said she would come home on the day our parents held the celebration and that she would buy me a gift. I ultimately submitted my application to a university located in the provincial capital. Mr. Chen earnestly advised me to choose information technology. This field is just emerging, but its future is very bright. Easy to find a job, high salary, and few women study it, making it easier to find a life partner later on. Sean, meanwhile, got into a reputable second-tier university, majoring in English. When the admission letters arrived at our home, my parents frantically rushed around preparing for the celebration. They ordered 6 inflatable arches, even though 4 would have been a huge deal in our village. They bought expensive, Furong Guang cigarettes with green packaging and over a dozen boxes of fireworks. Everything was bought on credit, to be paid for once the congratulatory money came in. I couldn't hide my surprise. Our family was never well off. Fireworks launched during the day wouldn't even be seen, only heard. Wasn't this overly extravagant? But my parents waved their hands dismissively. Our family hasn't had anything worth celebrating in years. Now, with double good news at our door, we can't let those who once looked down on us remain indifferent. Yet, the money they splurged that day would have been enough for me to live comfortably for an entire semester. My parents had never bought me a new shirt or a decent pair of shoes, yet they were burning money on things like inflatable arches and fireworks. I truly couldn't understand it. My sister Clara unexpectedly returned 3 days earlier than planned. Her face was pale, and her right little finger was wrapped in pristine white bandages. I quickly asked, but she merely shrugged. It's nothing, just a minor accident, a little blood, that's all. My father paid little attention, immediately asking, Dana and Sean both getting into university is a big deal. How much are you planning to give them? I looked at him in disbelief. Dad, Clara isn't even married yet. Why should she give congratulatory money? She's worked for years and all her savings have gone into our family. What does she have left? Dad glared at me, his lips tight. What do you know? Your sister has been working for 6 years. Surely she's saved a few pennies. If she doesn't pull out a decent sum now, won't the villagers laugh at us? Fine, 2,000 for each, 4,000 total will do. 4,000? Why not just rob someone? It'd be quicker. I was furious and about to stand up and argue, but Clara pulled me back, gently saying, You and Sean are both going to university. As your sister, I can't come empty-handed. I've already prepared this money. Back in our room, I was still fuming. Clara rubbed my shoulder as if soothing a child. It's not that Mom and Dad are bleeding me dry. I'm genuinely happy that you two have achieved what I could only ever dream of. I'm willing to spend this money. Don't worry, this will be the last time. My sister quietly opened her old, silver suitcase, her eyes full of mystery as if about to perform a miracle. I have a little gift for you. Before I could react, she held out a Nokia 3100, a hard-button, color-screen phone that was considered luxurious in the previous generation. She gently handed it to me, a little awkwardly. It's just second-hand. I can't afford new ones, but I bought enough for both you and Sean. Yours is a newer model, 100 yuan more expensive than his. I heard all university students have phones now, so you should have one too, just like everyone else. Other girls have them, my sister can't be left behind. I hugged her tightly, too choked up to speak. Clara, why do you always think of me like this? I don't deserve everything you do for me. You need to take care of yourself too, she laughed, wrapping her arms around me, gently patting my back. Loving you is loving myself. I'm fine, really. I'm living very well, don't worry. The celebration party only lasted one day, but relatives had been trickling in since 2 days prior. The house buzzed like a festival, serving guests, pouring water, rushing back and forth to attend to every detail. Clara and I were swamped, never resting our hands. Meanwhile, Sean, being the son, merely sat and chatted, laughing with our uncles and aunts. For 3 days, neither of us slept more than 5 hours a night. After seeing off the last round of guests, Clara collapsed onto an old wooden chair, falling asleep from sheer exhaustion. I noticed the bandage on her little finger had discolored, too dirty to remain. While she slept soundly, I gently unwrapped the bandage, layer by layer. And then I froze. Beneath the gauze was a severed finger, cut straight across. The wound had healed with new skin, but the dark brown scab was still clearly visible, not yet fully peeled off. I was numb. Tears streamed uncontrollably down my face. My parents and Sean also stood there, silent and stunned. I fumbled with a fresh bandage in my hand, unsure what to do when Clara opened her eyes. She looked at everyone as if nothing significant had happened, then smiled. It was just a work accident. The factory machine slipped. When I went to the hospital, the doctor said reattaching it would be difficult to regain normal movement and costly, so I told them not to bother. She raised her hand and lightly wiggled the stump of her finger. It's just my pinky. It doesn't matter if it's there or not. Normally, I only use it to scratch my ear anyway. The factory gave me 5,000 yuan, just enough for your 2 congratulatory gifts, 2,000 each and the rest for the phones. I burst into tears. Why didn't you say anything earlier? Did it hurt? I don't need the money. You should have had your finger reattached. Why are you so foolish? She gently stroked my head. Really? It's okay. Don't cry anymore. I still have enough hands to hug you, enough strength to work. That's enough. My mother's eyes welled up too. You foolish girl, such a big thing and you didn't say a word. If you're injured, you should rest, but you kept running around serving guests for days. My mother turned away, wiped her face with a towel, then went into the kitchen to cook Clara a hot bowl of meatball soup. As she brought it out, she urged Clara to eat while incessantly blaming herself. It's your father's and my fault for not being capable, for making you suffer far from home. Now that Dana and Sean are both in university, don't go anywhere else. Stay home, your father and I will take care of you. Before she finished, my father spoke in a low, hoarse voice. Yesterday, I told you to talk to Mrs. Wang's family, do you remember? Clara looked bewildered. My mother continued, she even brought her son over. I immediately recalled him. Is it that bald man, almost as tall as Clara? My mother shot me a long, stern look. That's not called baldness, it's genetically thin hair. Everyone in their family is like that, even Mrs. Wang. The boy is gentle, hardworking, and has a stable job. My mother held Clara's hand. Their family has a multi-story house right in the next town and a private house in the county too. His aunt is a government official with a steady income, no need to wander. You're 22 this year, not a little girl anymore. In these past years, worrying about your siblings made you miss your prime time. Your father and I just want you to have a place to settle down. They like you very much. As soon as they met you, they said this girl is well-behaved, gentle, and capable. Marry close by, and you can always run back to your mother's house if you need anything. I was seething. Are you kidding me, Mom and Dad? That bald man has less hair than Sean's armpits, and even with thick platform shoes, he's still almost as short as Clara. When he smiles, his face wrinkles like a shriveled jujube. They say he's 25, but he looks 35. My mother immediately turned around and snapped. What do children know? You marry to live comfortably, not to look at. Their family is well off, and they only have one son. Later, your sister will be mistress of a huge butcher shop. She'll have any meat she wants. Handsome, rich, young, and kind. Do you think those types would even look at your sister? This is your sister's lifelong matter. Don't butt in. My mother clasped Clara's hand tightly, her voice soft with a hint of pleading. Clara, you've been sensible since you were little. Your father and I aren't doing this to force you, but only to worry about your future. I've also asked thoroughly. Mrs. Wang really likes Dana and Sean. and even said that having university students as in-laws would bring more prestige to their family. They wouldn't mind supporting their education if needed. Hearing this, I felt as if a hole had been poked in my head and hot blood was boiling within me. It turned out that all those gentle, loving words were just a facade for a silent bargain. The price of our tuition was Clara's entire life. I couldn't take it anymore and shouted, "I've already asked. Tuition can be borrowed, there are scholarships, and I can work part-time. We don't need that much money. If studying means sacrificing Clara's happiness, I'd rather drop out." Before I could finish, Clara slapped my arm hard. "Silence, what nonsense are you talking about? You've worked so hard to get this far, you must go to university, even if it kills you." My mother turned to Clara, her eyes lighting up as if she'd found hope. "Clara, does that mean you agree?" I held my breath, looking at Clara. No, she couldn't keep enduring, couldn't sacrifice her entire life for a bit of filial piety. Clara looked at our mother and slowly shook her head, each word distinct like a deliberate blow. "Mom and Dad, I have no feelings for that person, and moreover, I don't want to get married yet." My father frowned, his voice sharp. "You're 22, and you haven't had much education. At this age, you should already be settled down. That young man has no problems at all. Once you're married, having a husband to rely on is better than anything. They're willing to give a betrothal gift of 128,000 yuan, and you still complain." He rambled on, his voice growing harsher with each word. Clara bowed her head in silence. My father angrily shouted, "Are you going to stay mute? Why aren't you saying anything?" Clara looked up, meeting his eyes directly. "Can men bear the burden?" "Dad, you're a man, what have you ever borne? Back then, if you hadn't gotten into a fight and been fined, I wouldn't have had to quit school, wouldn't have had to drop out of junior high. In all these years, if you had worked properly, our family wouldn't have been in such a state that my siblings and I had to work our backs off to support everyone. Do you know why my finger is cut off? Because I worked for 30 straight hours without rest, and that's when the accident happened." Her voice became increasingly choked, each word tearing from her chest. If my colleagues hadn't pulled me back in time, I might have lost my entire hand. Tears streamed down her face, but she didn't stop. "There's a man in the house, someone in charge, but the one bearing the burden is me, a woman. Dad, tell me, why is that? Have you ever truly taken responsibility even once? And now you want me to get married so you can continue living as if nothing happened." Clara looked up, her voice sharp as a knife. "Who knows, the man you choose might be a second version of you. I won't marry him. Even if you force me, I won't." My father was so furious his face turned red, and his hand trembled as he raised it to strike. I quickly stepped in front of Clara. "Dad, just try to lay a hand on her." My mother gently intervened, trying to soothe him. "Your father has made many mistakes, but this time he's truly worried about you. When I was your age, I already had 2 children." Clara gave a faint smile, her eyes glistening with tears. "If I become a mother later and have to live like you, I'd rather not have children. Mom, I'm so tired." My mother quickly continued, "It's precisely because I know you've suffered that I hope you'll have someone to share the burden." Clara smiled, but it was a twisted, bitter smile. Her lips parted as if to speak, but in the end she just bowed her head, her eyes vacant. My mother still wouldn't give up, about to open her mouth again. I stepped between them. "Enough, Mom, didn't you hear Clara? She's your daughter too, she has feelings, her own thoughts. If she doesn't like it, why are you forcing her? Is this still the age for arranged marriages like that?" Unable to persuade them, Clara bought the earliest train ticket back to Guangdong. Afterward, my mother went around the village, gossiping everywhere. "I don't understand why Clara has changed so much after working for a few years. Before, she always listened to everything, but now she's stubborn and won't hear a word. I'm her mother, would I really harm her? That family is well off and willing to help her siblings with their schooling, but she refuses. This opportunity is gone forever. I really don't know what she's thinking anymore." Someone casually remarked, a chilling thought, "Then just accept the betrothal money. Once the money is in your hands, she'll have to marry, whether she wants to or not." When I heard that my mother intended to accept the betrothal money, my heart felt as if it were being torn apart. I couldn't hold back anymore and erupted into a fiery argument with her. "If you truly want to see Clara leave home forever, then go ahead and take that money. But let me tell you now, if you dare to accept it, you won't just lose Clara. From now on, don't expect me to ever come back either. I'm afraid that one day you might secretly sell me off, just like you're trying to sell Clara. If Clara won't marry him, then you go marry him yourself." The conflict escalated, and the arguments dragged on for days. Finally, my mother relented, abandoning her plan. A few days after the celebration, my childhood friend, Xuan, returned to our hometown. Her brother had just welcomed his second child, so the family was holding a full-month celebration, and she came to attend out of courtesy. Back in early high school, we used to keep in touch regularly through letters. I would write about my classes and the lecture halls while she described her days working in a foreign land. But as time went on, our paths diverged more and more. I retreated into academic spaces while she struggled through a difficult, harsh life. My mother once spread rumors that Xuan was involved in something improper in Guangdong and warned me to stay away from her. I didn't believe it, but eventually, with fewer common experiences to share, our friendship gradually faded. I went to her house to visit. We reminisced about old times and talked about the present. But the more we talked, the more awkward the atmosphere became. Have you ever felt that way? The person in front of you is a part of your childhood. You still cherish them, and memories of them still soften your heart. But between you, there's an unfillable void. Even though they're right there, they feel so distant. Before we parted ways, Xuan pressed a large bag of candies into my hand. I remember you loved corn-flavored gummies the most back then. See you again sometime, Dana? I smiled. Yes, see you. Not long after, my university held its opening ceremony. My school was in the provincial capital, not far from home. Sean's university, however, was in another province, so our parents personally took him to enroll, fearing it wouldn't be safe for him to go alone. I took the bus to school by myself, using the leftover congratulatory money. This time, my parents gave me 1,000 yuan for pocket money. This is all you get for the entire semester. You need to budget carefully. If you run short, you'll have to find part-time work yourself. University students these days do all kinds of jobs to make ends meet. My parents covered Sean's tuition, while I had to take out a loan. The money Clara had left for me, I dared not touch it. It felt like a part of her sacrifice. I couldn't spend it carelessly. University life opened a completely new door. Freedom, comfort, roommates from all over the country. Everyone was friendly, and knowing my circumstances, often referred me to part-time jobs whenever opportunities arose. With a phone, contacting Clara also became much easier. A week after the opening ceremony, I landed my first tutoring job. The homeowner was Ms. Liu, a senior manager at a large company. Her son, young Tommy, was in the 6th grade. She had previously hired professional teachers and sent Tommy to tutoring centers, but he was stubborn and wouldn't cooperate with anyone. One teacher suggested finding a younger university student, thinking it might be a better fit. That's how I got my chance. For the first lesson, I wore my old, already torn shoes. I'd had to use superglue to mend them. My socks also had a hole in the toe, which I'd mended with needle and thread. Tommy wrinkled his nose and covered his mouth. Your shoes and socks are old and torn. Why don't you get new ones? I changed into house slippers and chuckled softly. I'm waiting for my paycheck to buy some. Even though they're old, I've washed them clean so they don't smell. As I spoke, I held up my shoe to him. Tommy pretended to gag and made a disgusted face. But after the first lesson, he told his mother, "Mom, I like this tutor." My life gradually settled into a stable rhythm, but for Clara, things grew difficult. Before returning home, she had received 5,000 yuan in compensation after her accident, and the company had terminated her contract. This time, back in Guangdong with a severed fingertip, no company dared to hire her, fearing another accident. She had to take on temporary, daily wage work. Low pay, no food or lodging provided, and incredibly strenuous. I couldn't bear it. Clara, come back here. There are so many opportunities in the provincial capital, and we can take care of each other. I still have the money you left. I haven't used a single cent. After many persistent attempts to persuade her, Clara finally nodded in agreement. I asked my dorm leader friend, a local, if there were any cheap rentals near the school. My friend shrugged. Near the school? No chance. All the couples have rented them out, and landlords know the demand is high, so they never lower prices. If you want cheap, you have to go far. Plus, renting requires a 1-month deposit and 3 months rent up front, which is quite a lot. How about your sister stays in the dorm for a while? There's still an empty bed. When she finds a place that includes food and utilities, she can move. Everyone in the room agreed, so Clara moved in temporarily. She was very considerate, cleaning and tidying every day, and even proactively helped my roommates get meals, collect laundry, and arrange their bedding. She was always like that. When she couldn't live for herself, she would live for others to make every breath worthwhile. I took her for a walk around campus, past the bustling canteen with its scent of lunch. to the quiet library smelling faintly of old paper, then up the small hill behind the dorms, where the maple leaves had begun to turn crimson. We walked together up the worn stone steps, etched with student footprints, hand in hand, as if trying to hold onto something fragile. The autumn wind drifted by, gently lifting her hair. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, falling on her smiling face, a smile full of sunshine and hope that made me suddenly think perhaps she was born to belong here. But life isn't a fairy tale. No smile can last forever under the shade of a tree. Clara still hadn't found stable employment. This city wasn't suited for unskilled laborers. Factories were few and far between. Most jobs were in restaurants, cinemas, or odd manual tasks. The wages were meager, hours long, and there was no insurance or stable housing. I started to worry. If she kept clinging to those strenuous jobs, her entire life might revolve around kitchens, dining tables, and shouted orders. The fairy tale of a Cinderella waitress meeting a prince only existed in cheap storybooks. In real life, people loved with reason and chose status. I couldn't bear to see Clara forever bowing her head. I inquired everywhere. Finally, my dorm leader friend led me to an opportunity. Her boyfriend, who studied management, said that tourism management was very popular now. Anyone in that field took the tour guide certification exam. All you needed was a secondary vocational diploma to qualify. A self-taught secondary diploma was easy to register for. My relative works in adult education and can arrange it for the base cost. With a diploma and certificate, you could become a tour guide, and the income isn't bad. Many people earn over 200,000 to 300,000 yuan a year. To take the exam, Clara would have to quit her job and dedicate time to studying. She hesitated, her eyes filled with worry. If I spend all that money and then fail, I cut her off decisively. That won't happen. If you fail, it can only mean you weren't determined enough. You're 22, how much longer do you plan to carry trays and serve people? Every week, the tourism major had specialized exam preparation classes. I told Clara to sneak into the class to listen to the lectures. But she's not a student here, she protested. The class is huge, no one will notice. Just sit at the back, don't be shy. I went with her for the first 2 sessions. The teacher still called roll, but in a class of several hundred, no one noticed a missing name. Afterward, Clara quietly audited the exam prep classes with my university students while also studying for her secondary vocational diploma exam. Occasionally, after my tutoring session, I would pick Clara up. Once I saw a male student hesitantly following her, clutching a small, colorful notebook. Clara was naturally beautiful. I had known this for a long time. Tall, fair-skinned, with gentle gestures. If she had been able to pursue education like me, she would probably be the campus belle by now. The young man timidly said, "Chu Dan, can I have your phone number? We could study together at the library sometime." Clara's face flushed crimson like a freshly picked dragon fruit. She lowered her head and whispered, "I'm sorry, I don't have a phone." He seemed momentarily stunned, about to say something, then as if suddenly understanding, he just smiled faintly. "Then, I'm sorry to have bothered you." On the way home, Clara was silent, gripping her bag strapped tightly. I pressed her. He seemed decent and polite. "You don't like him?" The wind blew gently, carrying a few yellow leaves to our feet. She smiled faintly, her eyes distant. "The other day he asked my name and major. I was afraid of being found out that I'm not a student, so I said my name was Chu Dan. I borrowed your name, borrowed your identity. I can't use that facade to start a relationship. I only finished junior high and I'm 3 years older than him. We're not from the same world." I wanted to tell her that he might not care, that feelings sometimes don't need status, just sincerity, but I couldn't bring myself to say it. Because more than anyone, I understood that the poor couldn't afford to love unwisely. Love isn't a ladder to climb, but if you're not careful, it's just a rope that pulls you down faster. There were just over 2 months from registration to exam day, a suffocatingly short time. Clara practically buried herself in books, studying early in the morning and taking notes late into the night. My roommate joked, if I had been as diligent as Clara back then, I'd probably be studying at Tsinghua in Beijing now. The day before the exam, Clara was tense again. "What if I fail?" I squeezed her hand gently. "If you fail, you'll retake it next year, but I believe you'll pass. These books can't be too difficult for you." The exam passed, but results weren't immediate. Not wanting to inconvenience the dorm further, Clara took on part-time waitressing jobs again. With her first paycheck, she did 2 things. First, she invited all my roommates to a cozy meal at a small restaurant near the school. She said it was to thank them for providing her a home in the midst of life's journey. Second, she bought a presentable fruit basket to give to the teachers who had allowed her to audit their classes, regardless of whether she was officially enrolled. I walked beside her as we quietly headed to the faculty office. Mr. Lee was there, amidst piles of documents and towering stacks of books. Clara carefully placed the fruit basket on his desk, her eyes shimmering with embarrassment. I actually don't belong to this university. I've just been secretly attending your lectures, and I only wanted to come and thank you. Mr. Lee smiled, a kind smile as if he had known all along. I recognized you a long time ago. All the students in my department know each other by sight. Don't be shy. Knowledge is for everyone who values it, regardless of whether they are officially enrolled. When you were in class, your eyes were focused, and your hands were always writing without stop. As a teacher, having someone like you in class is a joy. If you pass your exam someday, be sure to let me know. Time slowly passed after the Lunar New Year. In February, the results for the tour guide certification exam were officially released. That day, Clara paced back and forth in the room, too nervous to open the computer. Finally, she pressed her registration paper into my hand and asked me to check her scores. And then, the good news exploded: she had passed. Out of the 4 subjects, although she only scored 76 points in policies and laws, the other 3 subjects all exceeded 80. In just over 2 short months, she had pushed herself to exhaustion, and that result was the clearest proof. As soon as I told her, she hugged me tightly and burst into tears. I did it. I passed on my first try. I, who only studied until 9th grade, could pass such a theoretical exam. Although she had passed the theoretical round, Clara still had to face the final step, the interview. The main content was presenting some fixed tour routes, which was not a big obstacle for her. As a result, she excelled and officially held the tour guide certificate in her hand. I once thought that with that certificate, Clara's life would take a new, brilliant turn. Everyone gossiped that this profession could earn a good living, at least tens of thousands of yuan a year. We had been excited, thinking that one day we would invite each other to buffets every month and go to the cinema on weekends without a second thought. We thought the dream of escaping poverty was finally beginning. But when she started her actual job at the travel agency, I realized life doesn't operate on ideals. At that time, the tourism industry was booming, but also mired in ambiguity. Many companies were willing to organize zero-cost tour, even negative-cost tour, just to attract customers. To get a chance to lead a tour group, guides had to pay the company out of their own pockets, ranging from 50 to 100 yuan per customer. The money collected from customers would compensate for that expense, robbing Peter to pay Paul. But the price customers had to pay in return was a series of compulsory shopping trips, unreasonably expensive meals, or worthless performances. However, Clara, who was honest to the point of naivety, simply couldn't do those things. She didn't know how to convince anyone to buy something she didn't believe in. She wasn't eloquent enough to turn bad into good, and certainly couldn't force people to spend money on shoddy goods. After a few tours, instead of earning an income, she had to cover several hundred yuan in losses from her own pocket. Once, after seeing a group off at the airport, Clara didn't return for a long time. I called her and heard an argument on the other end, someone harshly berating her. Panicked, I rushed out of the house and took a taxi straight to the travel agency. When I arrived, a male driver who had been leading the tour stood before the manager, his face flushed, yelling at Clara. "If you won't introduce the goods, then let me do it. Instead, you butt in and tell customers not to buy. If you don't want to earn money, then quit. You might not eat, but I have a family to feed. Manager Zhao, don't ever assign her to work with me again. I don't want to go on tour with someone who acts all innocent while blocking others from making a living." My blood boiled at his words. Without thinking, I charged in. "Your mouth stinks. What did you eat? Don't you have a mother, a daughter? Aren't you ashamed to speak to a woman like that?" The driver's face suddenly changed color, and the manager quickly intervened, pulling Clara and me into a private office, lowering his voice. "All right, no more shouting. Come inside, let me explain." In the office, he sighed. Actually, Mr. Liu isn't having it easy either. His daughter, an 11th grader, was diagnosed with ALS, a disease with no cure. For his daughter to live longer and have some chance at rehabilitation, Mr. Liu drives day and night, taking tour without rest. In this profession, guides and drivers are essentially in the same boat. The company only pays for gas. For the drivers to make a living, they have to share the commission brought in by the guides. That's why they prefer working with those who are good at selling to tourists. This applies even during peak season, let alone off-peak, when they'd be sitting idle. Not earning money means his daughter can't continue her treatment or rehabilitation sessions, which is why he was so hot-tempered and outbursting. As for Clara, she also had her own reasons. That day, in the tour group Clara was leading, there was an elderly couple from a faraway village. They walked hand in hand through the crowd, their steps slow but their eyes full of love. This year marked half a century they had lived together, a golden anniversary that not every couple was fortunate enough to reach. The old man had saved every penny for years, hoping for just one trip with his wife, probably the only trip of their lives. Somehow, Mr. Liu got wind of their story. The very next day, he exploited that beautiful pretext to invite the old couple to buy a crystal necklace, a love gift, that, according to him, marked their 50 years together. That necklace cost 5,600 yuan, an unimaginable price, especially for farmers. Everyone in the industry knew that those crystal jewelry items were just low-quality goods masquerading as high-end to fleece gullible customers. Clara stood by, seeing the old couple's eyes flicker with hesitation and the old man's hand tremble as he fumbled for his money bag. She suddenly couldn't help but speak up to dissuade them. When we left the office, the manager just said one thing, like a bucket of cold water. "Clara, this industry is like this. The company primarily organizes tour combined with shopping. Pure sightseeing tour are only prioritized for veterans. You should think carefully before deciding." Clara didn't reply. When we reached the hallway, Mr. Liu was still standing there, as if waiting. He handed us 2 boxes of rice, his voice much softer. "You haven't eaten yet, have you? I got these from a nearby restaurant. They're still hot." Before we could respond, he stubbed out his cigarette on the ground and softly said, "My daughter is around your age. She was very smart back then. She probably wouldn't have been inferior to anyone in the university entrance exam. If she hadn't gotten sick, she might be sitting in a lecture hall like you two now." His voice began to choke. He swallowed a long breath, then forced a smile. "If it weren't for that cursed illness, I wouldn't have to do such shameful things. Honestly, I'm not even afraid of karma. At most, I'll die early and meet my girl down there so she won't be lonely. I was hot-headed today and said some things I shouldn't have. Please don't take it to heart." Saying that, he placed the 2 boxes of rice on the doorstep and turned away. "The rice is still hot. It tastes best when it's warm." We silently took the bus back to our rented room. The rice boxes in our hands were still warm, containing 2 generous portions of fragrant roast pork. I took a bite, but Clara didn't. She quietly looked at the rice box and asked me, "Dana, do you think what I did was wrong?" Life is never clearly right or wrong. Each person has reasons for their choices. Upholding principles is right, but compromise isn't always wrong. She understood why Mr. Liu had to do what he did, but she also felt heartbroken when thinking about that elderly couple. In her heart, there was still a line she wouldn't cross, no matter how poor she was. How could one have it all? How could one maintain a conscience and still make a living? That evening, Clara was almost demoralized. "Dana, I guess I'm not suited for this profession. I can't force myself to do something my heart doesn't accept. I'm sorry, all the plans you made for me might go to waste." I felt a lump in my throat. The certificate Clara had earned with blood and tears, was she going to abandon it now? If she gave up on the tourism industry, would she have to go back to serving and washing dishes? Perhaps she could study restaurant management, try to climb to a manager position. That might offer a more stable future. But I, a student with limited connections and a naive perspective, couldn't think of any other path at the time. Clara decided to look for another company, somewhere that offered pure sightseeing tour, a place that wouldn't force her to sell things or deceive anyone. However, life wasn't that easy. She sent applications to nearly a dozen places, but received rejections every time. Pure sightseeing tour were scarce, and newcomers like her had no opportunity to get in. I saw her starting to pay attention to "waitstaff wanted" flyers plastered on utility poles. My heart ached so much I dared not ask anything. Only one question echoed in my mind. Why? Why was someone as good as Clara constantly pushed into dead ends by life? She had worked so hard, yet still wasn't offered an escape. Could one instance of standing up for what was right be enough to make her fall forever? Perhaps heaven heard my silent prayer. An opportunity came on a weekend when I was tutoring Tommy, Ms. Liu's middle school son. Ms. Liu was at home when she received a call. After a few embarrassed apologies, she hung up and called someone else, her voice no longer calm. I only vaguely heard a few words. What kind of tour guide is that? I told you very clearly, my clients are not to be taken shopping, and you treat my instructions as a joke, I suppose. I froze, sensing something was about to happen. Ms. Liu's company was a major player in the industry, welcoming hundreds of tour groups from all over every year. Where we lived was one of the country's most famous tourist destinations. With picturesque landscapes and abundant historical sites, any visitor was bound to be led around the prominent landmarks. Some, eager for more fun, even wanted to visit neighboring provinces for a richer experience. At such times, Ms. Liu would hire services from a travel agency, explicitly instructing them for sightseeing-only tour, with no intrusive shopping or expensive specialty meals. But things never went smoothly in life. Most guides would seize the chance to earn extra commission, so despite instructions, they would secretly lead clients to shopping venues or restaurants with discounts. Easygoing clients would quietly overlook it, but meticulous ones would complain directly to Ms. Liu, making her furious on more than one occasion. That afternoon after school, I waited for Ms. Liu to pass by, then deliberately called out to her. Ms. Liu, I was wondering if your company is looking for a private tour guide. I quickly explained Clara's situation, then opened my phone to show Ms. Liu a few videos I had recorded of Clara guiding clients. Her clear voice, confident demeanor, and excellent explanations. My sister isn't good at selling, so she couldn't stay with those travel agencies, but her guiding abilities and attitude are absolutely impeccable. Instead of hiring externally and paying intermediate fees, why don't you just hire a trustworthy person to work directly for you? It would save money and allow you to control the quality. I paused for a moment, then smiled. If you give my sister a chance, I'll tutor Tommy for free this entire semester. Ms. Liu was slightly stunned, then squinted at me, half joking, half serious. You two sisters are that close? I nodded. If she hadn't worked hard after graduating from junior high, I probably wouldn't have had the chance to sit here and study. My sister was very smart. It's just a shame that family matters forced her to put her university dream aside. Ms. Liu was silent for a moment, then took a business card from her pocket. She told my sister to come to her office for an interview early next week. And Clara got the job. With her gentle demeanor, neat appearance, easy-to-listen-to voice, and rich knowledge of the provincial landmarks, she quickly made a good impression. Ms. Liu placed her in the administrative department, with a starting salary of 2,000 yuan per month, including lunch, housing allowance, and bonuses for good performance. In contrast, when she was working as a waitress, Clara worked extremely hard for only 1,100 to 1,200 yuan and often had small deductions. On her very first Monday, Clara was assigned to lead a small group of clients. The clients wanted to climb a mountain over 1,000 meters high. Other guides would usually choose to take the cable car, but Clara walked the entire way with the clients, telling stories and giving directions as if she herself were a first-time tourist exploring. Her genuine sincerity deeply moved the clients. Even though she refused, they still insisted on pressing 200 yuan of tips into her hand. She took that money and submitted it to the administrative office. Ms. Liu smiled. This is a token of appreciation from the clients for you. Keep it and spend it. Everyone appreciates such a sincere tour guide. Clara used that first sum of money to treat the entire administrative department to a small meal. After that day, no one harbored any ill feelings towards the newcomer. One day, Ms. Liu stopped by my tutoring session and said, "I'm still paying you the full amount for tutoring Tommy. And I have to thank you for introducing such a good employee to me." She added, "Oh, and Tommy's grades have clearly improved too. Tommy was a good boy. I had once sternly warned him, if you don't improve your studies, your mom won't hire me anymore, and I'm relying on this salary to get by." The boy looked at me seriously. "I'll study hard so mom gives you a bonus. Then you can buy some new dresses like my cousin. She's in university and wears such pretty dresses." The new environment truly was fertile ground for Clara to blossom. Clients praised her constantly. Many even sent local specialties to her home after returning. Some even called her office to chat, ask about her health, and share small stories like old friends. She remembered names, faces, even favorite dishes or allergies of each client. Once, a group of clients returned to the company, and the first person they mentioned wasn't a contract employee or a leader, but Clara. Gradually, she was invited to participate in contract negotiations and reception parties. Without ostentation or needing praise, her gentle, sincere, and thoughtful nature naturally exuded a charm that made everyone want to be close to her. When she wasn't leading a tour group, Clara wasn't idle either. She seized the opportunity to learn more from the other women in the administrative office. "It's fine, if you work extra, you learn extra," she'd say. "I know how to use Word now. She's teaching me slowly. She said once I get the hang of it, she'll teach me Excel and PowerPoint too. Oh, and this year, with the Lunar New Year bonus, I plan to enroll in a basic English class." The company also has foreign clients. It's better to know a little English, don't you think? That evening, I chatted with Kevin on QQ. He had gone to Zhejiang University, continuing to pursue information technology, just like me. When working on projects with professors, I often ran into technical issues and, out of old habit, would message him for help. In university, Kevin seemed to have shed his quiet shell from before. He was willing to answer all my questions and occasionally shared small stories from his daily life, sometimes about his roommates, other times about food or studies. Perhaps both of us had passed through the most arduous period of our lives, where we had to strain every muscle just to survive, fighting for every second and minute. Now we could breathe a sigh of relief, leisurely admiring the buttercups along the roadside, no longer needing to rush frantically. For the first time, I clearly felt that when people continuously move forward, the world also becomes gentler to them. The future might still be distant, but at least a path worth treading had opened up. I told him about my sister. "My sister is truly radiant now, like she's glowing." He was silent for a moment, then asked, "And you, are you happy?" The sky outside the window that night was full of stars, sparkling in a rare display. I smiled, gently replying, "I am very happy. It's good that we are both becoming better versions of ourselves." He messaged back, "Yeah, and you too will be even more amazing." I silently thanked fate for guiding Clara through the storm and was even more grateful that I had perhaps been a little more favored. In an interesting turn of events, Clara no longer welcomed tour groups but fully transitioned into administrative work within the company. Her position gradually rose over time, and she became increasingly mature and poised. She even emceed the company's year-end party. Everyone was surprised by her grace and composure. At night, she attended supplementary classes to earn an associate's degree, then a bachelor's degree through distance learning. She began to communicate in English. She even learned to play the guitar. At one gathering, she played and sang a folk song. The eyes of countless men in the hall were fixed on her. The interesting thing was that the student who had once approached Clara when she was secretly auditing the tour guide class now worked in a different department at the same company. During an internal social event, he recognized her and joyfully asked for her contact information again, this time, her WeChat account. Clara smiled gently and said, "Actually, my name isn't Chu Dan, it's Clara, and I wasn't your classmate. I dropped out after junior high and went straight to work. Back then, my sister urged me to take the tour guide certification exam, which is why I secretly came to listen to lectures. Also, I'm 3 years older than you," he chuckled. "It's okay. Now we're colleagues, it must be fate. Besides, I look older and you look young. Standing together, people would probably think I'm older than you." Later, he became my brother-in-law. The educational gap that had once been a barrier during our school days had now vanished. Now they worked at the same company, starting almost from a similar point. He was mature, dignified, and somewhat older than his age, making outsiders think Clara was his younger sister. During that year's recruitment season, I was hired by a large technology company. The IT industry was incredibly hot then, and my department was prestigious, so there was no shortage of job opportunities, and the benefits were excellent. As for my younger brother, Sean, in his first year, he loudly demanded a computer. I was studying it and didn't even have a laptop, yet he, studying English, had a brand new one. But then he didn't use the computer for studying, only for playing games. He failed 3 subjects, couldn't get a single scholarship. In his 3rd year, he suddenly announced he wanted to pursue a master's degree, switching to it, aiming for Zhejiang University. He claimed he had prepared all year, but the result was still a failure. Refusing to give up, he lowered his expectations. "Clara, I'll try for your university. Your university is only a top-tier one. It shouldn't be too hard." "I didn't get into Zhejiang because that school is too difficult. Please help me find study materials." Our parents were overjoyed and wholeheartedly supportive. This time, he's sure to pass. Even if he studies for a PhD, your father and I will support him. Unfortunately, he still couldn't get into that, not difficult, university. He planned to try again. This time, Clara was resolute. You don't really want to study, do you? You're just trying to avoid working. Don't take the exam again, go find a job now. By this point, Clara was a team leader, speaking clearly and decisively, her eyes sharp, her tone firm. Our parents, in turn, asked Clara to arrange for Sean to work at her company. Aren't you a leader now? Arrange it for your brother. Before, you only finished junior high and were hired. Now your brother is a university graduate. Surely he's not less capable? Clara calmly replied. Back then, Ms. Liu helped me. It wasn't because I had any special talents, but because she appreciated Dana, who had secretly tutored her son to pass the entrance exam for a prestigious school. Ms. Liu was the administrative manager. Her words carried weight. She could open doors. But now, it's not that simple anymore. We just have to post a recruitment ad online, and we receive dozens of resumes from students from prestigious 985 and 211 universities, even those who graduated abroad. Do you think society is still like it was 5 or 6 years ago? I'm just a small team leader. I can't just wave my hand and make things happen. In the end, Sean managed to find a job on his own. Of course, his salary and working conditions couldn't compare to mine or Clara's. My mother often repeated an old refrain, "Your brother isn't as capable as you two, so you two sisters must help him. You should both contribute to buying him a house in the city. How else will he get a wife without a house?" I always pretended not to hear. Clara was more gentle, but her words were sharp. If he unfortunately gets sick and needs money for treatment, I'm willing to help. But a house is different. If he needs $30,000, I can lend it. But if you want us to cover the entire down payment, I'm sorry, we're not capable of that. Our parents were angry but could do nothing. Because we had grown up, we could stand on our own 2 feet, and more importantly, our minds were no longer under their control. Someone once asked me why I didn't completely break away from that family. I had thought about it, but the more I learned, the more I experienced, the more I understood that they weren't the worst people in the world. I remember those scorching summers when our whole family went to the fields to harvest rice. Sean and I would fight for the shade, while our parents quietly gave it to us, sitting themselves at the edge of the blazing sun. I once shared a chicken drumstick with my brother, not wanting the wing. Later, I learned that my mother always chose to eat the neck and feet, parts with mostly bones and little meat. My mother loved Sean more, I knew that, but she hadn't completely forgot me either. When she had some extra money, she would still buy me new clothes while quietly wearing her old ones, washed until they were faded. Life was just like that, both sweet and harsh. Family was a heavy burden, hard to let go of, both dear and complicated. They had countless flaws, but they weren't entirely villainous characters like in stories. I couldn't simply cut off that blind blood tie, nor could I love them wholeheartedly. Their love was like a piece of candy wrapped in glass, sweet on the tongue, but once swallowed, it would tear at your insides. So what should I do? Just savor it, don't swallow. Don't believe that familial love can save everything. I live with a cautious clarity. Affection is a matter of fairness. However much they love me, I reciprocate in kind. No more, no less. Fortunately, I have Clara, and Clara has me. We are each other's warmest refuge forever.